In light of Miss Rona, the boys at BGO Pod have adapted a virtual platform to conduct and record interviews with this season's very special opinionated people, or BSOPs for short.
We thank you for bearing with any technical difficulties in advance. This pandemic has been raggedy, but in spite of, the conversations we've had with our BSOPs have been refreshing and were well worth the technical struggle.
This episode is also brought to you by Anchor. If you haven't heard already, Anchor is the easiest way to start your podcast.
Big facts. 1, it's free. 2, there are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your track straight from your phone or computer.
3, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many, many more. And 4, you can make money with no limited listenership.
It's everything you need for a podcast in one place. Carlton and I have been using Anchor for a few months now, and we're a bit obsessed.
Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. Don't wait, honey. Your future listeners are waiting.
Now, enjoy the show.
You have reached the voicemail box of
Carlton Taylor
And Sean Brinkley.
We are unable to answer the phone right now.
So either fuck off or enjoy the show.
And a period.
Not just like, okay, I guess this works.
LOL.
Are we live?
We are.
Okay. Another Wednesday, another hump day.
Child, the way the week be treating me, I don't be having no hump. Just flat back.
My hump, my lovely lady. Hump, bump.
I think it's hump.
I don't know. Anyway.
I don't listen to that music anyway.
What song is that? Anyway.
Ain't that by, what's her name, Fergie?
Maybe. It sounds like it could be a Fergie song.
Yeah.
Between her and Gwen Stefani.
What songs did Gwen sing? I do not remember her palette of music.
B is banana. B A.
I'll see.
The shit is bananas. Who is Sweet Escape? Woo, ooh. I think that was Gwen. If I can be free, be free. I will be your favorite girl forever, perfectly together.
The tune is coming back.
Ooh.
You know, I didn't.
Sweet Escape, I think was what it was called.
I did not listen to these people.
I think that was Gwen Stefani.
I think the only reason I knew this stuff is because it came on at MTV in the morning when they were playing the music videos and shit, and you be waking up for school. But that's how you know it's time for school though, when the music videos start playing.
Yeah.
Shit.
What was I watching before I went to school? I remember waking up in the middle of the night, and those infomercials were on, and it was usually the ones
Do you
for
want
like
your
the Love
booty
Collection. I'm screaming. No, it was the one. It was the one that used to come on Nick at Night about the Love Collection, and it was
The music one.
Yes. And then it was I forgot. You know the one I'm talking about. And then when those came on, I was like, damn, I gotta get up in a few hours to go to school. What was on television?
Sing it again.
Though?
That was what was the song? Sing it again. And they be having them walking on the beach and
yes,
shit.
they were like walking on the beach, and I was like, I want to love like that.
They weren't happy.
I mean, could have fooled me. Walking on the beach barefoot while I'm about to get ready to go to school.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God, I'm trying to. What else was on television? Maybe like it was probably like an old sermon or something, depending on the channel that you were on.
Yeah, either like church came on, some infomercials about OxyClean.
OxyClean, yeah, that's when it's. Yeah, you're right. Yep.
Motherfucking what's that shit? Was it moon sand?
Mm-hmm.
The shit that stick together. It was
Yeah.
moon sand. What other raggedy shit was on there?
What else were they? You said OxyClean. That was a really good one.
Right, OxyClean.
Rest in peace. You know he passed.
Did he really?
That was the guy from. I think the original guy was from Home Improvement. He passed away.
Oh.
Yeah, but he's legendary. OxyClean. Those fucking like those pot sets, like those.
Oh yeah,
Teflon,
or the knives. The
yeah.
motherfucking magic bullet was on there.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. And the Ninja at a point in time.
Right.
Before, because Ninja used to be one of those as seen on TV type things, and then they finally got their life and ended up at Sam's.
Gathered their shit together.
Oh my God, that's bringing me. That's taking me back.
Yeah.
Ugh. Back when we had a black president.
Yeah.
I was so spoiled. We were so spoiled.
Were we?
Yeah, we thought people really forgot that America was racist for a long periodically time.
I didn't forget. I mean, they were still treating us like shit.
Yeah.
In the trenches.
Yeah,
I mean,
Trayvon Martin unfortunately was taken away from
Yeah.
us during the Obama administration.
I mean, we're still being treated like shit.
But for what it's worth, I mean, I know I was living in glory, and I was like, we're making progress, and then Trump the dump just came the fuck through and just
motherfucking President Goldfish.
Yeah, literally Agent Orange just completely
Captain
left
Tangerine.
Cheeto dust all over the oval, and just he needs to go to fuck somewhere else with his orange cream ass. He gets on my nerves.
He reminds me of a if you wanted to like dye a Twinkie orange, that's what he reminds me of. But
Like,
maybe that's too generous of a.
Maybe if you like.
Because if you put some of the cream on the outside and just whisk it like his hair, and dyed the actual Twinkie orange.
Maybe if you submerge the Twinkie into like a Fanta and let it sit for a year.
Cause orange Fanta be having your tongue orange as fuck.
And just let it sit for a year and come back to it. I think that's more accurate. Yeah, that sound you made, I think that's more aligned with who he is as a person.
It'll probably taste exactly how we think it would too. That's terrible.
And I can't even put my finger on it, so that sounds about right.
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck that would taste like, and I don't want to know what it tastes like.
Yeah.
Just like I don't. Anyway.
Like his presidency. Yeah.
I mean, we.
A lot of parallels.
Jesus Christ. Well. Interesting segue into what the fuck we're talking about today. We are to.
How you just gonna?
Oh,
how
shit.
are you doing? Like.
Girl,
you don't want to rub
doing.
me up a little bit, little foreplay. Ask me how I'm doing.
Girl,
Take me on a dinner.
No, you gonna just raw
gonna
dog
put it in my booty hole.
honey. Just going straight into the action.
Run right
Fuck
into
the bullshit.
Right.
No, it's not bullshit. Asking you how you're doing is never bullshit.
I mean, we can.
No, we're gonna. Whoop, reverse. Slide to the right.
LOL.
Slide to the left. Take it back now, y'all. Two hots this time. All right, copyright. Sorry.
They're gonna just strip us.
You know what?
We have so much.
This is free promo.
We was coming for Katie last week.
Who?
Katie
who?
Katie Studios.
Oh, girl, they can get the fuck. They know they was doing us dirty with them damn pictures. Hiring these, let me shut up. But Katie Studios, if you've ever had your senior pictures taken by Katie Studios, you know what the fuck.
Right.
You probably looked at them studios. You was like, you know what? I'm just taking this picture so I can be involved in the yearbook. Like, and there's not like my mascot.
Yeah.
Or like this blank.
Over the picture.
Yeah.
Right.
Or it's like this, no picture available as shit.
Right.
Over your, like, who wants to be? That is so tacky.
It is.
Look at your yearbook, be like, who the fuck was that even? Like, at least have a picture
Child, that's the mother who who'll be stalking you in 10 to 20 years. It'd be like, that's what happened in all the horror movies. They'd be like, who is this? And they be looking through their yearbook and they'd be like, picture missing. And then next thing you know, later on in the movie, they ciphering through like they pictures or something. They come across the picture and they go line it up with the yearbook and like, don't. Just
Like, that's like some type of like completion to some fucked up puzzle or something. I don't know. Oh my god, horror movies. Horror movies can either have really good storylines or they can just be terrible, like porn.
Yeah.
But like in porn, 90% of the time the storyline is going to be absolutely trash.
Yeah.
But they get away with it because they're a
About
fantasy.
Banging each other.
Yeah, it's a fetish type thing.
Yes.
Especially like the ones where they like, it's like weird because I just watch gay porn. So like when they have like a woman in the situation, it's like, oh my god, like my wife doesn't know that this is happening, and like the wife would be across the room,
right,
like, wiping the bookcase or some
and
shit.
they just over there
like
slinging dicks,
having sex, and I'm like,
how do you?
She sees this. Because I see her seeing this. And you know what they say? If you can see the camera can see you.
Amen.
So, honey, this is just so dumb. Because that would never happen in real life.
Yeah.
I don't know what the thrill is, but every time I see some weird shit like that, I just say, this isn't for me. This isn't.
I think it's the idea of like getting caught that's what turns people on. Not that it's like realistic.
Why is that okay?
I don't know. It's like having sex in public. Like some people really get turned on by that stuff.
Okay, having sex in public is okay, but you're cheating on your wife. And you're doing it in front of her. Like, that's trifling as fuck. like you're getting head on your grandmother's couch.
Or like the other,
and she walks in and she's just like, oh.
Yeah, the storylines.
Like, why does that turn you on? It's absolutely
the storylines
disgusting.
do be wild as fuck though, cause like even some straight porn is like some moms be fucking in front of their sons and shit.
Yeah,
it's
that
like,
shit's strange.
It's a lot.
It was one I remember, and then I'm gonna stop talking about porn. Like, this guy, oh my god, it was so dumb. And so they were having sex in like the living room, and I guess the parent came in or something, and the guy just put on a lampshade. Like, he was completely naked, and just put like a lampshade over his head.
Like we weren't gonna see.
Like he was just instantly turn into a pole. Like, dick hard and all, and I'm just like, okay. I see where we're going here. So, this is like a Charlie Brown, Ed and Eddie situation. Where
did they see him?
They acted like they didn't see him. And so, that's what I'm saying. Like, this Charlie Brown, Ed and Eddie situation where the adults in a narrative are either dumb or they don't matter or they don't exist.
I can only commend porn stars for the work that they do, because if I would have had my black ass in there, I was like, you want me to act like I don't see you?
It's like, whatever. I get paid in 2 weeks, right?
Right.
Okay.
Probably at the end of the shoot.
Like, oh, I get paid after this? I don't give a fuck. Y'all can have me barking like a dog.
Right. Oh.
I'll be right there.
Right.
Child, but, how are you doing, Sean?
I feel like it never gets, like...
We've been
it just never
recording
gets
this
better.
podcast for like a year and some change now, and it's just always some shit.
Right. Like, because I was telling you, I think I said it the last one we recorded, like, my sigh at the beginning of every episode is just so loaded.
Mm-hmm.
But they is...
Our listeners are probably like, I get it.
Right. Oh, especially during quarantine. Oh, child. I mean, are we even quarantined anymore?
I don't know what this is.
We're just going. We're just doing stuff.
We're just being socially responsible. I think social distancing is now like being socially responsible.
Right.
So like if you've been around somebody that's sick,
Right, stay the fuck away.
stay the fuck away.
I mean-
get tested. Be aware. Wash your fucking hands.
But all that stuff is what we should probably been doing in the
Well, most definitely.
first place.
Humans are disgusting. Remember when we went to Six Flags?
Right.
And that motherfucker pissed and just walked out?
Yeah. Nasty.
Like, you just passed 6 sinks and you just walked past all 6 and nothing in your head was like, wash your hands. It's a global pandemic.
Nasty.
Granted, he probably went outside and got some of the tequila that's in the the hand sanitizer pumps.
Yeah, because that shit is something
Every
serious.
place I go that has hand sanitizer that's public, it smells like a frat house.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't smell like typical Germex. It smells like Skull or Tito's. Just like they just was like, this is cheaper, which it probably was cheaper to just use alcohol.
Right, to clean off your hands.
Yeah,
Yeah, probably.
I'm over this shit. So how are you doing?
Yeah, honestly, I'm stressed the fuck out just a little bit. They are taking everything I have to offer at work, and I just don't know sometimes. Like, I really don't know. But I'm trying to push through. If I can make it through basically like the next month, and I won't even say a month and a half, but the next three weeks,
Mm-hmm.
I'll be fine. I'm just doing like a lot of, I mean, cause like everything being virtual and with me sort of having a knack for like video production and audio production, all that other stuff. Like, I've just been video, recruitment video, voiceover, all that other shit for the past couple of weeks. So it's just a lot. And I'm just trying to, I don't know, really, because it's almost like a weird space because one of our higher level administrators got laid off. So it's almost like we're trying to make sure we justify our jobs with the work that we do in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Because if school closes again, who knows what's going to happen. So, but we're not even going to put that out there. But
Right, I'm rooting for y'all to at least get through
yeah,
to fall break.
yeah. I mean, because I still have to work. Because they pushed everybody online after fall break, but staff still has to work because I'm staff. So, but I'm trying to let these vacation days rack the fuck up so
Period.
I can. All right, don't talk to me. I'm gonna send you my shit for the next year, and I'm gone. Cause I need it, Lord. Like, I have just been really working, especially with. I mean, cause Carlton, I forget that I just got in this job like a couple of months ago. Like,
Yeah, you started during the quarantine.
So, I'm just trying not to let this suck me for everything that I have.
I mean, for what it's worth, don't let it.
Yeah.
It's not fucking worth it. Like, the climate right now is just ever changing, and nobody knows what the hell they're doing. I mean,
Yeah.
we can't really trust what the government is saying.
Nope.
We can't. I mean, at the end of the day, we can't stop money flow. So if the government's like, just go back, and everybody's operating on going back to things, it's just weird. The climate is weird. A lot of us are doing things for the first time, and I think because
Right.
we're still, like, it's probably going to take until next April until we're able to really be like, okay,
Back
I think
to
we
normal.
understand
Yeah.
what the new reality is. Now let's move forward, because
Right.
everything happened in like March, and it's about to be September now,
Yeah.
and they know what it's like to move kids onto campus. They know what it's like to have a summer, and everybody's understanding what it's like for the virtual platform going back to school.
Right.
Because apparently people have been going back for some time. Like, I'm having conversations with this one guy right now. He's a teacher in South Atlanta. They've been back for 3 weeks now.
Mm-hmm.
But I know my roommate, he just went back this week. And so the climate is just different across the board. But I'm hopeful and kind of optimistic that people start to understand what this new norm is and that we're able to like still move accordingly. But I don't fucking know. It's weird. That's weird. I feel you on that.
Yeah. I mean, how's everything? I mean, I know your job been stressing you out for years, but
Yeah, that is not an understatement or overstatement, rather.
yeah.
Things are alright. One of my colleagues has resigned, and so
Oh, really?
yeah, and she's part of the newly developed team. So I went from having a team of 3 to now just me being me and my supervisor again. Um, and she basically was like, "Hey, my supervisor was like, "Hey, I just want to talk to you about the positions or the responsibilities of somebody that's of the room of the employee that's about to resign." And I was like, "Okay, girl. I mean, I already told you what I'm gonna do. If y'all not paying me more, I ain't doing shit."
Diddly
Like,
squat.
period. And I can say stuff like that because y'all don't know where I work. Bloop. And I've really taken it off of everything. Um, just because I want to have, I don't ever want people to think that I'm just bashing my place of employment. It's just not my cup of
Right.
tea half the time. 75, 90% of the time, it's not my cup of tea. Things have just been weird. But I'm exploring grad school.
Yes.
I'm exploring options
Come on, grad school.
to move forward because I can't change the world and just be stuck in one pocket of it. So I'm just trying to figure out what that next step is for me. But work has been interesting. We probably aren't going back at all this year.
This year.
Um, one part is open to the public, but it's because that art form, like museums, are a lot more. It's easier to practice social distancing in a museum as
Right.
opposed to like
Symphony Hall.
a symphony hall or in a black box theater.
Yeah.
And so
Black boxes are really hard.
right, and so you really have to think about the different art forms and being that I work at a arts institution. It's important that I mean it's ever growing. Like we've had these conversations before how like symphony spaces are trying to figure out how the fuck they're gonna get people back in places because of the way the
Right.
instruments are engineered and how the fucking and it's disgusting to kind of think about, but it is true. Like just how spit and air is expelled from the instrument
Yeah.
when you're breathing through it, because you're having to generate a lot of breath, especially for like an instrument with hella valves like a French horn.
Yeah.
You got to go through all those valves and got to be able to produce a solid sound. It takes a lot.
Yeah.
And I mean, the idea that this is something that you can catch, it's a respiratory infection essentially. Like air is air. So
I bet people just like, what the fuck?
it's a mess. Nobody really knows what the fuck is going on, but I mean, that ain't my business to figure out. That's
Yeah.
not my job. So for what it's worth, I'm doing what I can. I'm keeping people very level-headed. People come to me with some bullshit, I let them know that it's bullshit. And I'm really learning 2020 has taught me that I need to stay true to myself and I need to communicate when I feel like something's wrong.
Yeah.
Even if I feel like me saying so is stepping out a bit. Because even people in upper level positions can be wrong.
Yeah. That's what I felt like literally today. Like I felt like I was being asked too much.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started pressing on that a little bit, because I was feeling a certain way,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, if I'm feeling this way, maybe I am becoming overwhelmed with all of the things that are going on. But they started pressing back, child.
And that's when you press on, honey.
Press a
y'all,
little.
can, y'all can make some cold pressed juice. Honestly, truly, if they bowed it like that, come on, you gotta, cause you're the one that's sitting down doing the work at the end of the day.
Right.
And if you feel like you need some more support, they should be more than willing to give you that.
Yeah.
And so it's nothing wrong with holding people, your superiors and
Yeah.
your management accountable.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just so crazy for us. I mean, you as a PR professional, like we don't have any type of marketing support or AV support or any of that stuff. Like all of that stuff is outsourced for my department. So we handle a lot of that stuff ourselves. We can go about requesting like projects and stuff to be done by the official, they call it Stratcom, for my place of employment. But they tend to get wrapped up in other parts of the institution, and they don't have time for people like us, quote unquote. So we're forced to do a lot of our stuff.
Well, get it how you live, honey.
Man,
they gonna get what they get. You didn't go to school for that.
right.
But for what it's worth, everything's gonna be all right. I just have to keep telling myself that because everything just feels like boo boo right now. But
that's crazy. Cause we sit and try and find like, cause I'm not sure if you've there's been another death.
Who?
What's his name? Jacob.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, he isn't dead. He's paralyzed. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
But there's been another shooting.
Yeah, there was another shooting.
And it's just so crazy how we're like we start getting back to that normal, or really getting in a space where like, all right, we're moving forward, we're making some headway, and then some more bullshit happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think that's a perfect sort of segue into what we're talking about today.
Yeah. So we're continuing with our conversation series, and this weekend we're actually going to roll into some conversations about social justice.
Yeah.
And I want to say all the people are your people. No, I think
we have
Ethan and Ricky are going to be coming in under social justice too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and then the other people are, because we have international background, and then so two of the episodes, those are my people.
Yeah. So this is going to be a 3-parter. And we're going to really dive into different layers of social justice, and how politics and capitalism and all these things, how the system just kind of just
right
plays a role in all of that.
Yeah.
And how the identity of individuals plays a role in whether or not they feel supported and respected and
yeah.
represented in these forums.
Yeah.
And so social justice, just like religion, just like pop culture, is just very vast. And so it may be worthwhile, inspired by the conversation that we had about pop culture, may be worthwhile to explore what that means to you, what social justice, what your positioning in all of this
Yeah.
means to you, or what you would want to see, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm posing that question to you, Sean.
For me, and I mean, we've grown up. We've talked so much about where we've grown up and existing in certain spaces, tearing down barriers, all these other things. So naturally, I've always taken I think my approach to social justice prior to this year was, I need to do what I need to do to set a precedence in spaces that a precedence hasn't been set.
Okay. Period.
I mean, because even going back to our high school days, and I was doing Atlanta Youth Wind Symphony, Emory Youth Symphony Orchestra, and performing in these ensembles, and I was like one of the only black kids in those ensembles. Existing in those spaces so other people after me could know they could exist in those spaces. And I mean, I pretty much did the same thing when I came to college. I mean, I made a decision to go to a PWI. And in those spaces, I mean, I really just, I made it a thing for, it's nothing for a boy out of East Atlanta Zone 6 to come out and do what they need to do, graduate above a 3.0, be involved in all of the major departments on campus, sports and rec, residence life, Greek life, doing all these different things. So I've always played. I think my role in social justice has definitely just been, like I said before, showing that we can exist in places that traditionally aren't for us, and really opening up that wedge. Because I feel like that plays a huge part when it comes to making changes and differences. Because you are in those when some bullshit start happening, you like, we're not about to do that. So that's the stance that I've always taken, and it's been a very, I won't say very background type of role, but I've never been the one, out marching and getting petition signs and protesting and all this other stuff. Like, I've never been that person. I've always been, I'm going to work into these institutions and infiltrate. But as of recently, I think I've just began utilizing the platforms that I've established for myself to really speak out on a lot of the things that are going on. And, it's not only when it comes to racism, but things that are even plaguing our community, like sexual assault and patriarchy and everything else that we gonna dive into all of this stuff. But, cause I've always found that when I've spoken up about these things in the past, I've been sort of pushed off to the side. And it's funny because the things that I'm speaking about now, I've always sort of spoke up about. But the energy is just different this go time. Or I said disco time, but this go round. And maybe because we've just reached our boiling point, and I hate using the word hypersensitive because we're not hypersensitive about these things, because these are things that are actually problematic, but I think we've just become truly self-aware about a lot of things that are bothering us. So I think I'm taking a front role more so with just speaking out on, we started BGO. That was one way. So, really, I was speaking out before all of the things started happening, but definitely utilizing my YouTube, getting in groups, really just talking to people and helping people facilitate healthy conversations about where we can go. Because what I can realize, granted, there's always been ignorance associated with a lot of the issues plaguing our community, but I think there's a lot of ignorance now because everybody's sort of upset about what's going on for good reason, but I see in a lot of conversations it doesn't go how it needs to go, or people get what they need to get from it. It's a lot of discord. So, really, that's where I am now. I've really been on the wave of trying to spread awareness about sexual assault. Because, that's something I've struggled with. That's something a lot of my friends have struggled with. And, just a lot of the things that I've seen recently when it's come to violence against Black women and a lot of the conversations that are sort of coming out. I don't know. It's something we really just need to sit down and talk about. That's really a heavy hitter for me right now. So I don't know. That's where I am. How about you?
Yeah. So to me, social justice, like I said, is so expansive, and I think in so many ways there's just so much work that still needs to be done. And it's ridiculous that it still needs to be done, because there are people who are in these spaces that are, I'm sure, actively trying to do things, but it's like the system is just so broken. And you have like Stacey Abrams with Fair Fight for Georgia.
That's for voting.
To protection of voters' rights. And you have like the Crown Act where, black folks are basically trying to get the right to wear their hair how it naturally grows.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's all these things that you would think would be protected somehow, some way that just aren't.
Right.
Like the fact that we had an entire act come out around the civil rights movement that said everything, you know, about what's discrimination, what's considered discrimination was protected under this act, and the way that hair grows out of your scalp wasn't a part of that, or like it was, but it was thrown in the race, and then it became really ambiguous, and then companies were laying on the fact that well, this is just a culture thing, and so it's all these ways in which the system has been used to demean the experience of people who are different than the majority or different than the standard, whatever that standard is, and usually it's a standard that's set that's contingent upon some white man.
Yeah.
And he feels entitled to that standard because of his understanding of the world.
Yeah.
But we all know that in order for the world to be a prosperous space, we have to work in, we have to coexist, and we have to work together.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot to bring to the table. And I think the biggest thing with social justice and all the social justice fights right now, and doing the work that you've been doing, Sean, that we all, I know for sure, I can't say we all, but I know for sure that I've been doing too, is just really utilizing my platforms to speak up and speak out, and not letting people, like, normalizing certain conversations. Like, I have friends who would sit here and just be like, I don't see the purpose in voting. And I'm like, you need to vote. Whether you see the purpose in it or not is something that you have the right to do, and it's something that people come to this country to do, and it's something that people that in this country, depending on if they were incarcerated for a certain amount of years or if they're documented or not, are fighting like hell to obtain the right to do.
Right.
Because your voting or your lack thereof is basically your way of participating in this democracy that in so many ways is built on a disenfranchisement of people that look just like you. And unfortunately, it's built that way because the people who were voting to make it the way that it is didn't come from your experience, or they didn't respect it.
Yeah.
And so the only way that you can counteract that is by getting out there and voting. And it's not just the presidential voting. Like, you need to vote locally, you need to vote federally, you need to vote statewide, you need to vote nationwide, because you want to make sure that you're in those spaces,
Yeah.
And I think it's really easy to just forget about how simple it is to just research some of these things. But life gets to knocking, and that's honestly what bigots rely on. They rely on the struggle of people not being able to, or not feeling that they can take the time to educate themselves, and using that as a weapon to stay in power.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's why it's so easy for people to be in these swing states, and people to be easily conveyed by just a simple anti-democratic ad that may pop up while they're watching Hallmark or something. Like,
Yeah.
they're easily swayed by stuff like that because people understand, like, politicians and marketing companies understand the people that they're targeting, and they understand the influence of whatever they're taking in. And so it's important to educate yourself, and it's important to take the time that once you educate yourself, that you educate others. Because it's interesting, because you just have to know, you have to be able to educate yourself, or else you'll end up fighting a battle, and you don't even really know if it's like, if the work that you're doing is really doing anything.
So, do you feel, what are your thoughts on, because we talk about our different generations, and just a lot of things or characteristics associated with our generation, our parents' generation, the generation under us. We can both say that we have access to a lot more information now.
Yes.
But how do you feel about, like, I don't know, just our current actions and how we utilize that information? Like, what are some general thoughts that first come to mind?
So I don't know. I think, so what a lot of older generations tend to do is relate things back to, they would talk about how they used to do things, or relate things back to, like, what Dr. King would have wanted. or and then they in a lot of conversations that I've had, they forget about like you know the the premise that Malcolm X stood on,
Yeah.
which was probably the exact opposite of what Dr. King stood on. Um, and for what it's worth, I don't think this is anything new. I think history repeats itself.
Mm-hmm.
I think older generations just forget about the headspace they were in when those things were happening, and they
Right.
were in those 20-something-year-old bodies. I think when it comes to us as a group, because there's so many different ways that we can go about talking about this stuff, like I think we utilize those things, and I think it's something that's very important that we all need to realize is that, especially for people that were born in the later 90s, we're in our early 20s,
Yeah.
and we're still, a lot of us are
Very
still,
young.
but a lot of us are doing great things, and we're in those spaces. Like you have Yara Shahidi, who's young, and people look at her and they're like, oh, this is this beautiful black girl, but she's extremely articulate, and she can sit down and she can have a conversation with you about what's
Yeah.
happening around the world, and she can use her influence to do that. And there have been a lot of other celebrities doing the exact same thing that fall
Right.
within our age group. We have Kiki Palmer, who is very vocal about everything that she's feeling. Kiki is 25, so she's a year and some change probably older than us,
Mm-hmm.
and she's been in spaces that people twice her age haven't even been able to grace yet.
Right.
Um, and she recognizes that. And I think every generation kind of has those very bold people that are
Mm-hmm.
able to be in those spaces and utilize those spaces for what it is. Um, I'm sure there were more people than MLK and Malcolm X that were being very vocal. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it was those students at NCAT that did the sit-in in Greensboro.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And like the work that was happening at Tuskegee, with the Tuskegee Airmen being in that space and being as prominent as they were during that time, really did make a difference. And I think we just need to realize the power of young people, and not be threatened by a different approach.
Yeah.
Um,
I think what's concerning, because those are all very good points, but I think what's really concerning for me is that as you know, we've evolved as a people, but so
Mhm.
has racism. You know,
mm-hmm,
and when I say that, it's not. I mean, granted, the blatant racism is coming out
mm-hmm,
now, with sort of us really pushing those barriers and being like, "All right, let's talk about this." Um, but I think just our age group, and I mean to some extent maybe our parents a little bit, we've grown up, maybe not so much our parents, because our parents were still dealing with like remnants of um, the civil rights movement and
Jim
people,
Crow.
right, and
Mhm.
adapting to those things that were put in place. But I think definitely for us, we we had a privilege that our parents, our grandparents, and definitely our grand-grandparents didn't have, where we can low key walk up the street to some extent. We can walk up the street without being picked up, thrown in the back of a truck, and hung.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, I'd say about 70% better. Like those things aren't necessarily happening. A lot of what we're happening is really systematic. I
Mhm.
feel, and I feel like what really hinders us, especially when we get in these moments right now, because we have this energy,
Mm-hmm.
and bringing it back full circle to why I think I moved the way that I move. Um, we just we didn't get the knowledge or have the knowledge to actually combat these things when things were brought to the forefront. So we're all rah rah to some extent right now, and it's like, all right, we don't really know what to do because when I was sitting and having a lot of conversations, following a lot of the things that happened just this past summer, it's like, all right, we need to do this and do this and do that, and it's like those things really aren't going to make a difference, at least in the context of where we are right now. So I don't know. I get really concerned when it comes to social justice and just this generation. Um, because on top of that, I mean, I've been talking about the LGBTQ experience and what those people are currently go through, especially people of color, in those identities. I think we sit in the privilege of, all right, this affects me to some extent, but if it doesn't, I'm not going to deal with it at all. Opposed to, they didn't have a motherfucking choice in the 60s. It was all or nothing type of energy, and granted, a lot of good things are happening. I will say that a lot of good things are happening, especially just I've never seen this amount of like unity, push for black business, push for legislation, pushing for voting. Like I've never seen it like this. But I feel like it's the fact that it was operating the way that it was for so long. I feel like that's going to set back in after a while. And when it comes to advocating for the different things that we need to make better, it's not going to happen. Because I mean, I've constantly had conversations about why LGBTQ rights need to be up there with Black Lives Matter, and those people need to be included in those conversations, because there's still, those people are being disproportionately affected as well. But you have a lot of people who is like, all right, that comes second tier. I mean, the same can even say it. I mean, that's what Black women are feeling right now. I think is second tier to the overall picture. So, with me just sort of seeing those conversations, I'm just really pushing for people to sort of increase their self-awareness a little bit more and realize, all right, there's more to this conversation than just fighting down or tearing down racism, because there's a lot of things that have just been ingrained in us for centuries. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm hopeful. I mean, just like every other thing.
I'm a cynic.
But I mean, I think with everything, you're not going to be able to relate to somebody else's experience if you don't know. So it's going to take representation from that person. That's the problem right now, is that you have people in power who are making decisions for people and they don't understand their walk. So the only way people are going to know is if you talk about it.
Yeah.
And I love Black women, but if you're not gay, then you don't know the walk of a gay person.
Yeah.
I know queer Black women who are just like, yeah, my queerness and my Blackness is equally as important. And I mean, I think it's just very important that when people say, well, we fighting this fight right now, you remind them like, no, honey, we fighting for the fight to be human. And I think that's where it really needs to redirect to. It's just treat people as humans, because it's racism. Yes, we're dealing with racism, but you got as a triracial confirmed individual on one side of my family, where I'm white, Black, and Native American. I know about the racism that comes from the white side of my family not wanting to interact with the Black or Native American side of my family, not even wanting to, like, going as far as cutting off those generational ties. Like, white people are so powerful, they can say, actually, we don't want this Black person to know that they're related to us, and so we're just going to completely cut off that bloodline.
Right.
And then Native Americans who don't want to accept my Blackness, because Native Americans, unfortunately, were literally slaughtered by the people that some of them were raped by.
Yeah.
And so they had to assimilate. It was a whole different level of racism. It was more so like, we need to be like white people or else we'll be killed. As opposed to Black folk, we were like, we're gonna stay Black.
And we're just gonna
and then there was a
separate
few
ourselves.
of us that actually tried to assimilate too.
Right.
And I mean, that goes back into like Greek culture. Like some organizations you couldn't get into if you were too dark.
Right.
And so those things are reinforced in so many different ways. And I just think it's important that we kind of, we just really need to realize that this Black fight in present day is really, it's just a matter of survival. And like you're saying, we do have to fight for survival, but it's different. Like we don't have to worry about being kidnapped, and I mean, not in all ways. Not it's the likelihood of it happening now is
A little bit lower.
a little
Yeah.
different. But that's at
Yeah.
the same time, that's me speaking from a privilege of somebody that hasn't had to go through something like that.
Right.
Um, because on the other side of things of social justice, you have children who are being put in cages
Yeah.
and separated from their families.
There are so many, and I think what I'm about to say describes everything that I've been feeling in the past few months, because there would just be weeks at a time where it's like I can't, and I just shut down. There are so many different layers to what it means to advocate not only for yourself but your community. It can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
Especially when all of these things are happening to you at the same time. And not only are they happening to you at the same time, but they've been happening for years. So it can be so overwhelming. I know for me.
And it can't just take one person trying to figure out what that end all be all is going to be for all types of people.
Right.
It's going to take representation, which I think is that's why it's so important to have the conversations with people. That's why I'm glad we're doing this conversation series, because you can sit here and say, nobody's advocating for me. Maybe you need to advocate for you then.
Right.
If nobody else is doing it, maybe there's a reason. Maybe you need to advocate
Right.
for you.
What do we need to do to get in those spaces?
Right. Because it is difficult.
Yeah.
It's difficult, but Miss Virginia, I know I brought this up to you before to watch it, but it's this Netflix film called Miss Virginia, and it's based off of a true story of this woman who basically saw that the Washington,
the
D.C.
one who started the was it the education or was it the hair? I think
it was an education initiative of some sort.
Right. Okay.
To get more
I think
funding
I'm
to the
confusing
kids.
Madam CJ.
Oh, LOL.
That thing on Netflix.
Yeah, but Miss Virginia, she's played by Uzu, who was Crazy Eyes and Orange is the New Black, and she slayed the fuck out that role. It's based off of a true story of this woman who saw that the Washington D.C. school system was failing her son, and she realized that when she tried to put her child in private school and couldn't pay for it, that the school system was actually getting more than enough money per child, but that money was being routed to people's pockets instead of into the school system. And so she discovered that, and she fought like hell to get initiative ran. She basically got Congress on her side. She reached out to her congressman, this black woman in the early 2000s, reached out to her congressman, this white man that got up and played golf basically every day, and like did not let him sleep until she sat down in front of him and said, this needs to change because my child is worth it. And it took her literally developing this grassroots campaign and getting the entire neighborhood involved. But it took her literally putting her foot down. She saw that nobody was doing it, and she did it.
Yeah.
And in so many ways, my mother did the same thing when I was in PTA. She saw that there was an opportunity for something to happen, and when she realized that nobody else was stepping up to do it, and she had a problem with it, she was just like, "Okay, I'm gonna do it myself. I'm gonna become treasurer. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that." And I understand that everybody doesn't think that like that. Everybody doesn't have the time to do that. But I think more people should definitely make time to do it, especially if they're going to complain about it. If you're going to complain about something, honey, sit down and figure out what the fuck and how the fuck.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way it's going to change. I mean, it took a group of black lawyers in California, to basically solidify an act that said dreadlocks or locks and twists are not unprofessional. Black hair, coarse hair, is not unprofessional.
Right.
I shouldn't have to sacrifice the healthiness of my hair, how it naturally grows out my scalp, just so that I can fit within this role for your company.
Yeah.
When I'm bringing my talent, when I'm bringing my career, my knowledge from my 3 degrees, when I'm doing this, when I'm doing that, I have to go on top of all these other things and inconvenience myself naturally because of a culture that you've put in place
Mm-hmm.
to keep people that look like you around, which
Mm.
isn't fair for just due to how these organizations unfortunately had to leg up based off of the disenfranchisement or the foundation of the disenfranchisement of black and brown people.
But what's crazy though, Carlton, you also have stories. I'm not sure if you've seen it, and this speaks to my early point about like I'm not sure because certain things are still happening that are problematic. Like Jamaica just, I think they just ruled against a child or wouldn't let a child come to school over having dreadlocks. Like that's still a thing that they're going through in that country. And I'm glad we get to talk with some people who originate from those origins.
Mm-hmm.
Our next episode, because it's like when we talk about social justice, but these things are like legislation preventing people from having certain things that we've deemed now, because it's 2020,
Mm-hmm.
we've deemed have no negative connotations. So why are these things still happening? You know?
Imperialism.
Yeah.
Jamaica is still trying to get the white man's coin.
Ooh.
I mean, it really goes back to people just not treating other people as humans. And I feel like when it comes to a lot of countries that haven't made it to the same like economic stature as the United States, and even in the United States, because we were talking about last year how Narvi J was trying to implement some stupid
Right.
ass hair code, and I'm like, let these motherfuckers wear their hair. Like,
Right.
I just don't get it. I really don't get it.
It's just backwards. Because, I mean, because even looking at it now, like, they're sending kids to school and not requiring them to do a lot of these safety precautions. But they're sitting here
trying to
raising hell.
differentiate hair,
Right.
what your hair look like.
Right.
You are absolutely correct. Priorities are just in the wrong place, and that is not of God. Like I just don't see how you can open up an entire school of over 1,000 kids and not mandate any type of social distancing. And I'm talking about you, North Paulding. Any type of social distancing practices during a global pandemic. Like I just don't.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah, that can be so discouraging though, because on top of like all these things that, because we talk about addressing it and really taking the time to sit down and like, all right, let me fix this problem that like I really got a fucking problem with, but it's like shit like that happens. And it's like what the fuck, like,
Yeah.
can I? Because granted, a lot of people may like be living in their privilege of like, oh, I don't have to deal with that, so I'm not going to address it. But I think also a lot of people are dealing with it doesn't make a difference, and I think that speaks to the people who you were talking about when it came to voting. Like so much bullshit is happening that could like our votes really may not matter, and even if we go through all of the practices, we're doing our registration drives, we get our absentees in on time. The bullshit that's going on with USPS, we somehow, some way get around that bullshit, and it still comes down to it, and it's like the person who's filing my vote or casting my vote, they end up doing some fuck shit, and it doesn't even matter. Like the odds of that happening, especially during this time, Carlton, are very likely, I feel.
But it's gonna happen if you don't do it too.
That's real.
So it's like, do you? We're back.
Every episode.
Last episode was pretty good.
It was.
It was pretty smooth. But yeah, it's hard. It really is difficult. It's like choosing the less of two evils.
Yeah.
But I really think we have to stay encouraged because people die
Yeah.
and new people come in and take their places. And so if we give up now, then the world is destined to be shit.
Yeah.
But if we stay persistent and stay hopeful in something, we can create something better. And I mean, I think that's just what we need to do is create something better. Because I still don't understand how the economy is doing what it's doing when we create the economy. Like,
We should be able to control.
we should be able to
Yeah.
control to what extent, because it's not like the money that we're circulating is backed by anything valuable anyway. It's a mental thing.
Yeah.
It's like this money means this much because this is what we said it means. Right? Like in some places you can have like a handful of conch shells and that'll be considered some type
Right.
of currency.
I mean, but it's only because we're reinforcing those things, and the people who have the or are in the places to really control those things or have the power to change those things don't want to do that. You
But
big
they old as hell and they gonna die. And so we can't be like, because they're not gonna live forever.
Right.
So we can go into we can figure out where the issues are and go into those places and do it. And I think we get so, because when you think politics, I mean these are all boomers. They try to understand us, but they're not gonna really understand us. And even when it's us and it's generation 11, like they iPhones or some shit. When it's generation 11 and we're in the house, we're probably not gonna be doing things that they want to do. But we're probably gonna be there like, this is much better than what we was dealing with when we was y'all age.
Yeah.
And look, now y'all on some other shit, and we've been working hard to kind of like it's always going to be something. And I think the biggest thing is doing what you can. Doing what you can to say that you did something. Not to say that you did something, because it makes it sound like it was something that you just did. Something I just felt obligated to do it. But like doing what you can, and being able to be okay with what you did.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to be able to fix everything. We're just not.
Yeah.
We're just not. Like, Martin Luther King, we always bring up Martin Luther King. We always bring up Harriet Tubman. We always bring up Sojourner Truth. We always bring up
W. Du Bois.
E.B. Du Bois and all these different types of people. But for what it's worth, we're sitting here making history now.
Yeah.
And like the founders of the Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
Black lesbians. Like, their names are going to be in the history books.
Yeah.
And for what it's worth, it's because we're living in it now that it's kind of like, But things are happening. Like, for something like the Crown Act to be put into place where it was huge for me. Because, I was discriminated against because of my hair.
Right.
And the Crown Act literally is like specific. You cannot discriminate against anybody because of their hair. And for it to happen in California, which is where the headquarters of the place that I was discriminated against for my hair lives, they had to do something. Black women make that happen.
Right.
Had to do something for this white built company to basically have to restructure the way their culture is set up. And they weren't young people. They were like in 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
And this is a fight that people have been fighting for a long time, but it just doesn't get as much traction. I think another thing is that we can't allow the media to consume us either through it all.
Child, that is because I'm talking about the motherfucking students of Twitter University and Instagram.edu
Honey.
and Facebook College. I don't get on Facebook, but them other folks.
I mean, the media is controlled. It is what it is. Like you hear what they want you to hear.
Right.
But there's shit always happening. It's billions of people on this earth with whatever infinite number of thoughts and ideas and all this different shit that happens all the time. And I'm sure there are people on this earth that exist that haven't even been accounted for. That probably have their own way of doing things and living life and sharing ideas.
I need to go where they go because I'm pretty sure it's not half as ghetto.
Listen.
As what this bullshit is here. Granted, I got my central AC, but god damn it, if I gotta give that up and fan some goddamn banana leaves.
Not banana leaves.
For me not to be sliced in the fucking throat for liking dick or having my skin like the color of a coconut, I'll go there. Fuck all that. Child.
Honey.
Let me go. They probably up there in the them places in the is it the Andes?
Honey, I don't know. I'm just trying to go to
The Andes Mountains,
Canada where they
child.
have universal health care.
I heard they not no better up there either though. But I
I
guess
mean,
the healthcare is better.
racism is racism across the world.
True. True.
Like, and I think as African Americans, we're going to get it regardless. We can't even go back home and people not think we're appropriating.
Right. It's like you don't belong here.
It's like,
What the fuck?
like, so what?
Oh, the next conversation is gonna be so good.
It really is. We're going to be talking to NK and Sashay, right?
Right.
I'm excited. And so,
Because what does that even mean? Like,
it's gonna be fun, and I really fuck with the series that we're doing, and so
it's different.
it is different.
Like, I'm really having to adjust because it's like, granted, we're kikiing, but we're not kikiing like we used to. With season 1, like there were a lot of interjections, but like we're really digging into conversations now.
Yeah.
And it's just different, you know. It's different.
Well, I'm excited to explore. So we're gonna have NK and Sashay come on and give kind of like a I mean, they're not. It's not like they're from. I mean, I guess you could say
Right, because
international.
they grew up here, but they're verily. I said verily, Jesus. They're still
yeah.
they're still culturally tied to.
Are they considered first generation?
I think so. I think
So
so.
some first generation Americans.
Yeah. Because they're very tied to where the culture that their parents grew up in.
Yeah.
But they grew up here.
Okay. Yeah.
So
we're gonna have that episode where we're talking to them. We're going to have a conversation with my friends Ethan and Ricky.
Mm-hmm.
And Ethan is
like Ethan, like Filipino Ethan, or is this another Ethan?
No.
Okay.
This is my Ethan's black, very black, and he's a trans activist.
Oh,
and
yeah. I remember him. Yeah.
He's been published.
I don't know why I was thinking about the other Ethan. I don't know.
Because he's my roommate. And then we have Ricky, who is a creative director, but he's also very in the know. He's a writer.
Yeah.
And he, the three of us, we have this group chat called The Boys, and we just sit and we talk about shit. Like, we, like, literally randomly, if someone is feeling some type of way at 3 o'clock at night, they'll say they feeling some type of way, and they'll talk about it. And, like, it's just like it's a safe space.
Yeah.
And so, much like BGO, that episode is going to be a really cool safe space. We're going to dive into some things and just really have very open conversation about existing, especially in this current political social climate. And then we have the conversation with
Simline and Ajane.
Okay.
Who's going to give us one is a coordinator for civic engagement on the college campus.
Nice.
So everything voting, what that means for younger people to vote. She could definitely give us perspective, and then of course her own personal things.
Yeah.
And then Ajane, she works. Is it primary or secondary? It's primary and secondary. Then
She said she's
higher.
middle school, right?
Yeah.
I think that's secondary.
K through 12, motherfuckers.
Grade school.
Yeah, she works in grade school. I think she's touched on working with kids with special needs. And then I know she's definitely done some advocacy works. Cause she moved up to DC and was working in DC and doing things up there. Came back down here for a couple of months. And I know she was doing some advocacy work down in South Georgia, from what I understand.
Mm-hmm.
But she actually just, you know what? I'm not about to get into it. I'm gonna save it for the episode. But
Right, she'll fall into that.
right. But get a perspective on, I don't know what it means to advocate in education and, you know, those different things.
Okay, I live for it. We about to explore some shit. Cause I mean, I love how you're just like, I don't fucking know what we're gonna do. And I'm just like, I'm hopeful. And I really, I think it's just, I don't know. I, for so many reasons, I just see so much promise. It's just how we're gonna get there. Um, and I just have to stay hopeful. Like I really do, cause I want my kids. First off, I want my kids to be here. Cause by the way we treat the earth, it's gonna be like this.
Child, have you seen the 100?
I've seen bits and pieces, and it depresses me.
That show is a lot.
Yeah, I don't have time for no post-apocalyptic world shit. We just need to get it together.
Yeah.
But on so many different levels, I'm excited to explore these conversations with these motherfuckers. Let me lit.
Or VSOPs.
Oh my God, where are we at?
I mean, we good. We good. We always good. We could have did 30 minutes ago if we wanted to.
Child, this our shit.
Right.
Me and Sean always say that. I'm like, when we going? We're like, you know what, nigga? We're going to do this on our fucking time. This our shit. No, but for what it's worth, please join the conversation at our Instagram at BGO_pod. Be on the lookout for all updates. And we're about to fall into these different fucking conversations, honey. Stay tuned.
Oh, yes.
Bye.